Hello and welcome to the Binteger podcast. This is episode number 27, and my name is Binny. I'm your host. This is the place where integrity calls and wholeness responds. So glad to have you for a few moments in your day while we dive into another exploration in the theme of integrity. This is, like I said on previous episodes, the only podcast that I know of so far that hones in on integrity. There are fantastic conversations and talks on the theme of integrity, but more in a topical way. This is, I think, the only one that I know of that says this is the reason why it exists. The Bintegers. Binteger. The word integer is the root word for integrity, and it signifies wholeness. It's like a whole number. And so it lends to this image of wholeness that we're aiming for in our pursuit of experiencing integrity. And so I put be integer or be whole together so that it forms the basis of why we do this. This is, again, like the place where we want to experience wholeness as we explore integrity and how it can be applied in our personal lives. And so if you're in that season of life where you are experiencing dissonance and lack of synchronicity, this is my primary investment to introduce you and to encourage you and to inspire you to pursue walking with, living in integrity. Today we're talking and exploring a little bit about how integrity is impacted by the uncertainties we face in life. So facing uncertainty with integrity is where we're going to hone in on today. I'm looking forward to diving in to that. But first, let me do a quick feelings check. Feelings check is what we commit some time to in this podcast to practice ongoing integrity with ourselves, honesty with ourselves in the moment by legitimizing the emotions that we're presently in. And so in this moment, I am feeling a little bit uncertain, a little bit scared, and a little bit vulnerable. So a bunch of uncomfortable emotions, to be certain, and yet as I reflect and as I have been reflecting on these emotions that I'm going through, even though they're not fun, I am super grateful to experience them. I'm super grateful that I can express them and say, this is what it is right now for me, these unpleasant emotions that I'm facing and that I'm working through. It reminds me that I'm alive and that I'm feeling them. I'm not numbing them out. I'm embracing them. I'm experiencing them. I'm sorting them out. And so that's a beautiful thing that I'm grateful for. My dear listener, what are you feeling in this present moment? Where have you been energetically, emotionally? And how can you give space in these moments to acknowledging and affirming what you're experiencing, even if it is uncomfortable? To help aid in that, I like to read through a few different emotions so that you have some different vocabulary to describe what you may be going through. Today's selection include on that unpleasant emotion side where your feelings and your needs don't seem to have been met. There's disappointment, jealousy, despairing, hesitant, and confused. Once again, disappointment, jealous, despairing, hesitant, and confused. And in the pleasant emotions category, where you feel like your values and your longings and desires have been fulfilled, here are some more vocabulary words to add to your arsenal of descriptive words to fine-tune what you're feeling. Confident, engaged, perhaps you're feeling joyful, centered, or relaxed. Once again, confident, engaged, joyful, centered, and relaxed. May these words and these moments speak to you and give you a bit of space to legitimize your existence and where you're at in this moment. That's why we devote time to it. Let's go ahead and explore a little bit in the realm of how facing uncertainty with integrity is something that isn't easy and yet is so necessary today. Uncertainty. What is uncertainty? We we come across these words sometimes and it's like we think we know them until we have to define them. And so, in my own words, uncertainty, I would say, is not knowing what's going to happen in the future. It's like that lack of predictability, if you will. You can't quite perceive what's on the radar and what's coming. And so that's what uncertainty for me is. Now, uncertainty, in my observation, often causes a plethora of insecurities to arise. And with those insecurities, we are tempted to take pathways and trajectories that lead us away from integrity. And that's why I'm honing in on this topic of uncertainty and how it relates to our integrity, especially as we face it. Because the reality is we all face uncertainties. We all face uncertainties where we do not know what's going to happen. In fact, in our humanity, in our limited humanity, we can't look into the future and maybe call the shots. We can make plans for and sort of try the best we can to gauge what we see happening that can give us some cues for the future. We have some patterns and processes, but on a personal level, there are many uncertainties that we face that we just don't have that ability to perfectly choreograph and to, with certainty, ascertain exactly what's going to happen. And so here are some of those insecurities that may find expression as a result of us facing the uncertainties in our life. There's fear of the unknown right off the bat. That anxiety that comes when we just don't know what's about to happen, and that creates this sense of like worry and like uncertainty. There's self-doubt about our abilities, perhaps about our decision making. We're just in the absence of the knowledge of things that could help us make those decisions. We just have that sense where we're second guessing ourselves, right? There's lack of control, where we feel a tremendous sense of powerlessness and like this helplessness, if you will, that we feel immobilized as a result, right? Sometimes uncertainty lends, and this is part of my experience, and I was experiencing this recently, we start in the face of uncertainty doing comparisons, and with those comparisons comes a sense of self-judgment where we're like harshly looking at our own inadequacy to accomplish or take on whatever it is that is in the unknown. There's also another one which is very deep for so many, and myself included, and that's this fear of disapproval, this fear of being rejected. Like this desire to seek validation and social acceptance is so strong that when we face uncertainty, like it ups that sense of fearing that we're going to be disapproved or rejected by those that we value their affirmation. And of course, there's also this sense of loss of stability, especially in relation to our routines. Like we just have come out of a worldwide pandemic, and that was like very much front and center. This instability that everyone had to shift to a whole new sequence of engaging, right? We just didn't have our liberty to go and do what we've always done and enjoy doing, and that's loss of routine sure affects many in adverse ways, especially in the zone of the unknown where uncertainty lies. And of course, there's fear of failure, making mistakes along the way because you just don't know which way to pivot and what to do or say or how to go about engaging. And so these are some of the insecurities that I came up with in relation to where uncertainty tempts us to walk down. And with these insecurities, it seems to me they lead us further and further away from walking with integrity. Now, the impact of these securities on integrity is as follows. Let me define integrity first and foremost. Integrity for me is the alignment of our internal values with our external actions while being true to ourselves and respectful of those around us who are also trying to figure out their own pathway. So at the very outset, it's like that awareness of aligning our internal values. That means you have to actually know what your internal values are. What are those things that are your deal breakers? What are those things that you hold so sacred that they're like so important? These values, these principles, these beliefs that you hold dear. What are these? And so the impact of uncertainty and the insecurities resulting from these uncertainties on integrity is that we are prone to compromising those values that we hold so strongly to. We are susceptible to compromising those values so that we can perhaps gain some security or some certainty along the way. That's one of the driving motivations for why we might compromise. There's a lack of transparency that we might have, where we are tempted to withhold information or to manipulate information to our own benefit that deviates from walking with transparency and integrity. Furthermore, there is inconsistent decision making because we may find ourselves second guessing in the midst of uncertainty, right? And so this inconsistency flies in the face of the consistency that integrity really highlights when we are trying to be consistent in the ways that we make our decisions. Furthermore, there's this seeking validation based on what others are thinking or what we perceive their expectations are. And when we do that, we compromise on what our values are. We deviate from that and we subscribe to something else that may not resonate with what our values are that we're trying to act accordingly with. There's also this sense of those who they struggle with taking accountability. They lack accountability, and they're far more interested in shifting blame away from themselves instead of taking ownership and stepping into and walking with integrity, saying, how can I work on me aligning my actions with my values that I hold? There's overcompensation of false confidence, saying, hey, I got this in the midst of uncertainty, even when you don't have what it takes, which is dishonest in communication pattern, right? So it takes some real self-reflection, it seems to me, to be aware of how our uncertainties and the resulting insecurities can lead us away from integrity. And that self-awareness, that self-reflection takes us internally to say, here are the actions that I'm doing which are not aligning with the values that I was espousing, and what does it take for me to bring back into synchronicity my actions with my values? How can I start acknowledging and accepting that uncertainty is part of the landscape for all of us, and we, in the midst of facing the unknown and all of these temptations to express these insecurities and these deviations away from integrity, how can we accept that these are actually opportunities for us to step in to locking down what integrity looks like, even when we do not know the outcome in these uncertain zones? One of the most challenging things is to face the unknown with a commitment to the values that you espouse and the way you act accordingly, and you're consistent through them. That is something that is so compelling when you see individuals who walk into that space and they say, I don't know what the cost is going to be when I commit to walking in alignment with my values and my actions, but I'm steady. I'm walking this course. I'm consistent in it. It's impossible for us as human beings to know all the answers. Isn't it? It's impossible for us to be able to say exactly what's going to happen in the future, especially in the zone of the unknown. So therefore, we might as well be open and flexible to the opportunity that uncertainty presents us, even as we commit to walking with integrity. Herein, we can stay grounded in our values. We can stay rock solid in pursuing it. We can practice honesty ongoing with ourselves, with others, as we especially face those uncertain seasons, right? And, when we're facing the unknown, it's not that we can't look for more information. In fact, we ought to be looking for more information, seeking knowledge to help us understand in the midst of uncertainty so we can choose the best outcomes that still vibe and align with our values. And of course, this is an amazing opportunity in the midst of uncertainty to embrace some beautiful values like adaptability and like resilience and flexibility. Like, these are beautiful accoutrements to who we are and what we stand for. And so why not look at uncertainty not with this fear and apprehension, and not be succumbed by the siren calls of those insecurities that lead us away from our integrity. But when we look at it as opportunities to say, hey, we're going to lock down and grow in the process. My dear Binteger, thank you so much for listening in. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I'd love to hear your experiences, because this is a real thing. But I commend you as you listen in, as you consider for yourself, and as you commit together with me to walking with integrity. Love you guys. Bye.